Hi, I'm Kelly Landry. I'm the Human Rights Officer here at U.S. Embassy Prague. I've been here about a year and a half, and I just have only 6 more months to go, unfortunately. But this will be my second Thanksgiving here in the Czech Republic. Thanksgiving to me is all about being with friends and family. That's the holiday that you don't want to be alone during. I mean, it's so sad if you're alone. So even while I'm here in Prague, it's really great that we get together with a group of friends and celebrate with very traditional food like turkey and stuffing and cranberry sauce and mashed potatoes. So I'm looking forward to it. I've already got my plans settled. I actually have 2 dinners, so I will be overeating this year. But when I think back to the traditions of my family, I actually have 2 memories that stick out, and they both involve cranberry sauce. Which strangely enough is not usually the memory that most people think of. But when I was a little girl, my mother and I would go to my grandparents' house in Georgia, and lots of good food, and my grandmother was an amazing cook. But there was one thing she didn't really cook, and that was the cranberry sauce. Because in Georgia, especially back when I was younger, they did not sell fresh cranberries. And so everybody grew up on jellied cranberry, which I have right here. This is the best, I'm telling you. Just take my word for it. But the coolest thing as a kid was it was my job to open the can and get the cranberry jelly out of the can into a nice, perfect little cylinder to put on the plate. And so that was my favorite thing about Thanksgiving, was that was my job. I had a purpose in the kitchen. And so when I became a high school student, a teenager, I was living up with my dad, and my stepmom is from around the Philadelphia area. And she grew up with fresh cranberries, and she would always serve an actual cranberry sauce. It's good, but when you aren't raised on that, it's just not what you love. And so I dared one Thanksgiving to suggest that we buy the canned goods, and she was horrified, absolutely horrified. And she looks at my dad, who's from Texas, and wants him to tell me, what real cranberry sauce is. And so he kind of looked at my stepmom and said, sorry, I'm with Kelly on this one. Let's buy the canned stuff. So now it's kind of a family joke that every year she lovingly puts down her cranberry sauce made from fresh cranberries and kind of plops down the jelly mold, which my dad and I are perfectly happy with. But the other thing that actually, the tradition that sticks out most in my mind about Thanksgiving is a relatively new one for my family. My family, my dad's side of the family is Cajun. We eat lots of gumbo, and it's kind of between a stew and a soup, but nice and spicy, because like good Cajun food is. And my dad needed something to do with all that turkey that gets left over. There's always turkey left over from Thanksgiving, and families around America are constantly trying to figure out what to do with all this turkey. So our solution was to use it to make gumbo. So we have turkey, and we have spicy sausage, and it's got lots of vegetables in it. It takes all day to make. It's a good 5-6 hour process. And so my father's extremely proud of his gumbo, and he's taught me how to do it. So every year, even though I don't necessarily make a turkey, I buy a turkey over at one of the grocery stores here, and I make it. And I'm really excited this year because some of my Czech colleagues I've explained this to, and so we're going to have a post-Thanksgiving Day feast of gumbo, and it'll be like being home. So I'm excited and really looking forward to that tradition. So if you want to learn more about cranberry sauce or gumbo, come see us at the U.S. Embassy.
Dobrý den. My name is David Beam, and I am the Consul General at the U.S. Embassy here in Prague. I've been here for just over a year, and I will be here for 2 more years. And I'd like to share a little bit with you about my family's traditions of what we call Thanksgiving Day in the United States. Thanksgiving is a day in America where we gather as family and friends to give thanks for what we have. It's the one holiday that is not related to any religions, and so it tends to have a greater significance for a lot of people than most holidays in terms of everybody celebrates it. And for me, I think it's my favorite holiday in the United States. And the reason for that is I have great memories as a child growing up at home. We would always have a frenzy of activity in the house as the dinner was being prepared on Thanksgiving, because there's certain traditions where almost everyone eats turkey in the United States for Thanksgiving. But in our house we had other traditions as well. There was always creamed mushrooms. We always had sweet potatoes with sugar. We always had your mashed potatoes with corn and stuffing and coleslaw and fresh rolls. And while Mom was preparing all of this for us in the morning, I would always go out in the early morning because we had two major high schools in my town, and they always had their rivalry football game, U.S. football game, and 10 o'clock in the morning on Thanksgiving Day. So Mom would send me away so that I wouldn't be in the way, and I would go to the game, and then we'd come home, and then we would sit down, and we would say a prayer, give thanks, and have generally our whole family, and oftentimes my grandparents or other relatives would come with us as well. And then we would have a nice meal, and everyone would enjoy it. And then after we were done eating all of this, where we ate too much, then they would bring out the desserts, which for us, we always had pumpkin pie, and we always had cherry pie, and we always had something which in the state where I'm from, Pennsylvania, was very, very common, called shoe fly pie, which I don't particularly like, but that's okay. And then afterwards, some people would go and clean up, and I and my dad, at least, would go and watch football for the rest of the day, because that's another tradition in America, is watching American football in the afternoon. And, I really miss those days, but since I've been in the Foreign Service for the last 17 years, I've developed new traditions. For instance, last year I went to Budapest and had Thanksgiving there with some friends. A couple of times I lived in the Southern Hemisphere, so we would have Thanksgiving by the pool. And that was a very different kind of tradition, because normally for us Thanksgiving is at a very cold time of the year. And for this year in Prague, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do yet, but I know that it'll be great, and that I will be very thankful to be in this beautiful city of Prague. Thank you.